Hello, my name is John Peace with the Rural Route Review. I'm here with my frequent co-host, Heather Moses. You want to introduce yourself to the viewers again, Heather?
I am Heather Moses, and I was born and raised in the GOP, but I left and I am the chair of the Wise County and City of Norton Democratic Committee.
Well, thank you for being here, Heather. And I tell you what, real excited. Joel, he's going to introduce himself here in just one second. I'm going to let him turn it over to him. Heather, he is a wonderful, great writer. And I tell you what, I've read a lot of your stuff and descriptive. I'm a storyteller. I try to write stories, but now Joel here is a wonderful writer and stuff, and does a great job on humor. But anyway, Joel Barker, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I love thank you so much, John. And every good writer feels like they're a bad writer most days. So we need to hear that. I'm Joel Barker. I grew up as a townie in a small town in Oregon. Left, swore I'd never come back. Managed to keep that promise for near 30 years, but moved back to my rural roots here 3 years ago. I've been a Democrat all my life, but when I moved to an urban area, I got involved with the Democratic Party, and everything there was just strange and weird and very unfamiliar to me. And had it took a lot to adapt to how urban Democrats worked. Now I'm back, and I'm now the chair. So there's two chairs here. I'm the chair of my county party, and I write a Substack with my friend Leo Schumann out of Helena, Montana, called Old Truck Good Coffee, where we talk about the interchanges between urban and rural people and other interchanges in our lives. But that's one that we feel is having such a impact on our country right now.
Absolutely. Joel, I'm gonna throw a little curveball here. This is a recent post, and it just popped in my head, but I wanted to ask you. You did a recent post on LinkedIn, and here where Heather and I live, these data centers are a big issue, and they're really getting into rural America and rural Southwest Virginia where we live. But you made the post talking about not fearing AI in writing, and I agreed to that post. I said, you know what, I agree with you. Talk a little bit about you not fearing AI taking over writing and taking out the person and the voice.
Well, I kind of have to not fear it in order to be good at what I do. I also write professionally. I write for technology companies, and there's certainly things that are being put over to AI for financial reasons. But I'm realizing that the ability to reason, the ability to be in a room and be a three-dimensional being with a heart beating, with fear of mortality, is something that cannot be replaced. And so I just believe strongly in that. And all of the moral flaws that are built into AI systems, they're actually trying to put one in my poor county as well. Of course, they put them in places where they think will welcome these systems, but we have a 15% expected snowpack this year. Our farmers are going to get 20% of what they expect, and they're going to get it 2 months later than they would have before. So it's over for agriculture in Jefferson County this year, and I can't imagine that we want a data center instead. So, how we're going to deal with these technological questions is it's going to be defined by the reality, I think. I don't think that the technological oligarchs have as much of a say about what's going to happen as they think they do.
I hope so. I hope you're right.
I hope so.
You can talk about a little bit what's happening in Wise County with data centers and everything.
Well, I believe, and I'm speaking for myself and other people that I've talked to, and we're a poor county. Our county is in so much debt. It is ridiculous. And they've used their rainy day funds and they use up all their COVID funds and it's crisis mode time now. So I get that we need economic development. The people here deserve good jobs like the mines brought with good pay and good benefits and union jobs. And so we're not against economic development. We weren't necessarily against data centers. We didn't want SMRs here to power those data centers. We're already paying some of the highest energy bills in the country from Dominion. And the residents can hardly afford to pay their electric bills. You're talking about widows trying to pay electric bills that are over $1,000 a month. And so we can't afford to let data centers come here scot free with tax incentives and pay nothing and us foot the energy bill for them to be here. That, I think, is the biggest issue if you take the nuclear side out of it. Because, again, clean energy, we're not against nuclear. What we're against is being guinea pigs. And SMRs, there's only two in the entire world. There's one in China and there's one in the North Russian Sea. And Russia put it there because they didn't even want to put it in Siberia. Greenpeace calls it floating Chernobyl. And I'm not joking. You can Google that. And as anybody that's ever researched nuclear complexes and nuclear waste will quickly learn, there is no national depository for nuclear waste. Any nuclear waste created must be stored on site for eternity. And our ground, all the limestone and rocks are too porous. They leach water underground from one mine to another. And it would be the same with nuclear. It's just an accident that we can't afford to risk taking. But the data center side of it is, data centers are going to be a necessary part of our existence in the technological world we live in today. Medical data centers are necessary. So much of what we do online now has made data centers necessary. But what is not necessary is them being able to come in and take land for pennies on the dollar and not pay residents anything to be there. They don't bring jobs. You work in tech, data centers basically run themselves.
Yeah.
So
Support that. Yeah. At
I
most.
think Bernie Sanders actually entered a bill in the Senate to make data centers pay. If they come to build a data center in your neck of the woods, then they have to pay so much to do so because he's trying to protect small, poor counties from being taken advantage of by data centers. And they use an incredible amount of water along with the energy. And so do you think they're going to be paying us for that water? It's just one of those things where we want economic development that helps our area, but we don't want to be used or taken advantage of. And Southwest Virginia's been used and taken advantage of for 100 years or more.
Yeah.
If
Um,
I can speak to that, it's all right, John. Like, one of the things that our poor areas have in common is a heritage of an extraction industry. And where I come from, it was trees. When I was born into or not born, but when I moved into Central Oregon at the age of 17 months old, there was three in Redmond, and I'm not sure how many in Bend, but one of them was like the largest one on the West Coast. And now there's one in Redmond, one in Madras, and I don't think there are any in Bend, maybe one. And I lived through the era where they went away. Anyway, my point about it is that we're used to, I think, a couple generations back, where one employer could drive the whole area. And now they're still kind of looking for that. Uh, I don't know if you guys have an economic development corporation where
yeah.
you live,
Actually, we
but
do.
Deschutes County and my hometown of Redmond both have economic development corporations, and they're driving small scale manufacturing. They're going out and finding businesses and bringing small scale manufacturing to Central Oregon and to Redmond, which is the town here. And I'm just so proud of them. They're doing that, and it gives them leverage. They're not getting the data center. It's adjoining Jefferson County that's getting pitched the data center. It's the poorer counties that they think they can bend to their point of view. And so hopefully we can find ways to kind of build brick by brick instead of just drop a manufactured building of economic development on our communities.
One
You
thing I was
know,
going to echo Heather's comment about, we know data centers aren't necessarily good or evil. It's that
Right.
deal
Yep.
where
It's
they,
the
they
deal.
prey on these poor localities. They're looking for tax revenue. Like Heather talked about the financial side. Our current county budget is like $8 million in the hole. And so, I mean, they're just prime example of, and then a data center comes by and says, oh, we're going to pay these millions of dollars of taxes. But see, they control so much of the deal, and they have such an upper hand. And, of course, if you don't agree to their terms, oh, well, we'll go somewhere else.
I think that in the process of getting my political science degree, I've learned so much. And governors historically did not have much power. They were basically figureheads of the state. In the 20th century, they started giving governors more power and more control over their states. Nowadays, in the 21st century, one of the governor's biggest jobs, other than overseeing the laws that the legislature passes and making sure that everything's carried out to code and overseeing state budgets, is to be kind of like the state's CEO. They go out of the country, not just to different states, but they
Right.
go overseas and they solicit business to come back to their state.
Hmm.
The same way you were talking about the neighboring county doing with their Economic Development Commission. That's what we have to do,
I
is
think
we
so.
have to get out here and show people what we have to offer business and the beauty of the community and the small town lifestyle and make people want to come here. You can't just have some big corporation come in and push you into a deal that leaves you worse off than you started and call that economic development.
Yeah.
Another thing, you just can't rely on the state capital, or in our case, like Richmond, to hand you stuff. You, as that county did, you got to go do it yourself. Hey, Heather, before you got on here, Joel and I was talking about, he just got back from his state Democratic committee meeting, correct? Well,
I
if you
did.
want to kind of start out, let's talk. I'm sorry I got us off on data centers, but your post pop in my head, and I'm getting old, and if I don't talk about it when I think about it, I'll forget it. So let's get back on track. We'll talk about your state committee meeting, or
Yeah.
yeah, go from there, Joel.
Well, I make it a point to go. One of the reasons I was called to, I felt called to become more politically active here was since I was politically active when I was in the urban area, when I was in Portland, and now I'm politically active out here, is I want to continue to speak to those relationships and remind people about the rural topics that matter. And they're not always the ones that are top of mind for people. But my point about it is that we've got these right wing folks. So we've got a couple things. We've got this organization that was called Timber Unity, which was relatively extreme. And then we have this thing called Greater Idaho. And Greater Idaho, you can look this up. You're like, what? It is a bunch of people who want to move the border of Idaho to the west, claiming large amounts of Eastern Oregon, including where I live, as Idaho, because they would rather be in Idaho.
Joel, we have a bunch in West Virginia want to do that with Southwest Virginia.
Really?
Yeah, same
Okay.
thing. But go ahead. Not quite
And
as
it's
organized
and
as
it
that, but
you know,
yeah.
that's crazy. I would love to learn more about that. There, and it's an organizing thing, you know, and it's disappointing because just like on the national level, the Democratic Party needs to appeal to people and bring them in and give them a reason not to do these crazy things. And that means showing real attention and care and honor of rural people. And so that's what I want to do. And I've kind of been looking at the demographics of our states today. And if you turn out the Democratic voters in Multnomah County, that's Portland, Washington County, a suburb, and Clackamas County, if you turn out all the Democrats there, you can win statewide elections in Oregon. And so the party doesn't have an electoral, and the Democratic Party only exists to elect Democrats. Everything is driven to drive towards that goal. Platforms, ideologies, that's just to elect Democrats. So they don't have that much of an incentive to actually get votes where I am, which means running as a Democrat is hard. It's literally scary, because we don't have we don't have any backup, and we have a terrible reputation because of the things they do to get those votes in the urban areas. So when I go to the state central committee meeting, these are the things I want to talk about. I love being a part of my rural caucus. Our congressional district has a Republican in it. We have a great just teamwork effort of the Democrats in there. And but it gets touchy. Like the thing that I'm really trying to work on right now, so uncomfortable. It's about the gender balance rules at the DNC level, which are very precise. You know about this. You're nodding,
I
right?
know.
It
We'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
It has to be exact. At the state central committee level, it's not like 46% is close enough. It has to be 50-50, or if it's odd, like 1/over male to female, and then how they deal with non-binary people varies a little bit, but it has to be exact. My county gets 2 delegates, and I managed to recruit a 35-year-old guy to be my vice chair after not having a vice chair for 3 months or 4 months. He's amazing. And I was like, and you can come and you can have a voice at the state level. And then I got a message from the SCC or from the staff, and they were like, you can't send two dudes. And I was like, I was feeling really good. And it's not that gender balance isn't important, but like, I've got an incredible amount of friction in order to be a successful county party. And this is just one more thing. And, and so, we're working on it, and it's a team effort. Definitely the state party is not trying to, is working with me on how to resolve this. But these sorts of things it's like onesies, twosies. We lose vote after vote after vote. A lot of us stand up and say like, hey, the language in the platform as written doesn't make sense to a rural person. Can we
I
change that
know.
language a little bit, And so we lose on everything, but I just keep going. I just keep showing up, being friendly, and maintaining relationships with folks, and hoping that it gets better.
Quick question on that. The makeup of your state leadership board, caucus, or whatever, central committee, we call it central committee.
Yeah, same.
How many rural people are on there? Because let me tell you, in Virginia and the DNC, there is nobody that sounds like me and Heather, and nobody talks like me and Heather. Okay. But there's some that call themselves rural, but they don't talk like us and they don't sound like us.
I've found out something talking to an expert yesterday that's pretty interesting. I think your state central committee is all appointed by your chair. Is that true?
Ooh,
Because I'll tell you how.
we'll have to do a little homework ourselves on that.
So ours is geographic, and it's by population. So every county has a certain number based on the population. All the caucuses, rural caucus, gun owners caucus, Native American caucus, all those caucuses have one or two delegates to there. But we come from the parts of the party. But that means that in order for the SEC to be balanced, we have to be balanced at every level.
Okay.
So that's the difficulty.
Now,
But
now Heather,
I've got some good Ariat wearing Hicks like in my caucus. It's good.
Now, Heather, we don't have any of that at the local level. Now, I know at the regional level we do have that 50-50 balance, but
Yeah.
that's correct on the local. We don't have nothing in the
Well,
local committee.
I don't have it on my local committee either. My bylaws don't say it. But because the DNC won't seat the Oregon delegation, its SEC is not balanced, then the SEC has to be balanced. As a result, I have to be balanced in my delegation, which is of questionable, like who's in control here, a question. But at the same time, it's for gender balance. It's a good thing,
I'm gonna step you back. You were talking about like the language that your central state party does and how it don't resonate with rural people
Yeah.
in Oregon. And now Heather and I, we got stories about the same thing. But go ahead and tell us about your stories and see how different it is or if there is any difference between like East Coast and West Coast here in Virginia versus Oregon.
Well, it's a question. We do a platform every 2 years, and it's a great time where people get together from all over the state. I used to kind of be like, why are we doing this? But it's language, and language is important. And then there's this question about whether it's for the people in the room or whether it's a tool to explain who we are to people who are not in the room. Now, I'm going to explain the situation. I'm not going to say that there's one side that's right or wrong here, but because I've been an urban guy and a rural guy, I watch these things, and it really like tears my heart up, because there's growing and evolving understanding of how DEI language needs to look. And they're really important things where you talk about, like people don't like to be called disadvantaged. We want to find another language other than that. And that stuff's moving in urban areas in such a way where people I know, the chair of Multnomah County is fabulous and is really on top of this stuff and stands up to speak for communities that have been historically left behind. But oftentimes that language is kind of being built in a lab. And when you're sitting out here and you're kind of thinking about your dad, my 80-year-old dad here in Redmond, Oregon, and like what it's going to sound like to him when you keep changing the language of what he's supposed to believe in, it just gets hard. And and there's a cost to that is what it's so what we try to stand up and do is just be like, hey, this is no longer sixth grade reading level, and there's a cost. We're going to have to spend our time explaining this instead of getting votes, right? And it's like, is this what you want to be doing right now?
Couldn't agree more. I think and I'm a feminist, and I have taken courses in women leadership and feminist studies, and I agree with you. I agree with you. I believe that the Democratic Party, the DNC, is hurting themselves because they're focusing too much on what you just said instead of focusing on the fact that they are the closest thing we have had to a workers' party in this country in 50 years. And if they're trying to get people to show up from rural counties to vote, those are working class people. They care about the economy. They care about how much groceries cost. They care about how much it's going to cost to feed their animals and buy fertilizer and get back and forth to work and how they're going to be able to afford their medicine when winter comes and the electric bill is over $1,000. So, yes, it's important. And yes, we want to have representation from every level, gender, ethnicity. We don't want to leave anybody behind. But by focusing so much on that, we're forgetting about working class people, and the Republicans have left them behind a long time ago. And if we want to get back to what we used to call here in Southwest Virginia the Boucher days, when Southwest Virginia was blue, we have got to focus on things that matter to working class people who live paycheck to paycheck, like your dad, like my parents.
Heather, one thing I was going to bring up, and I'm going to switch gears from kind of words to issues.
Mm,
For example, rural Virginia, rural America wants a living wage as much as anybody. Okay, working people. I mean, we want a living wage, but like here in Virginia, they were really pushing raising the minimum wage. Well, okay, that is great, but you can't. What is acceptable to a small business in Northern Virginia is much, much higher than rural Virginia. And to have these blanket policies and not realize, for a small business person, Heather comes from a small business, their family. So when you talk about starting to raise minimum wage, you need to have some different regions and really have a talk about what to, $15 an hour is dirt cheap in Northern Virginia. In fact, nobody's even working for
yeah, you
$15
can't
an
even.
hour. But $15 an hour in Southwest Virginia is much different. And then
You
when you
know,
start talking
Oregon
about 20 or 25, I mean, uh,
Oregon did divide up
did they?
their minimum wage, yeah, by regions.
What did it work? I mean, has it worked better? That's interesting because see, we've just been
People seem happy with it. I
okay.
can't speak to it on the numbers, but people seem pretty happy with it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a good way to kind of start, but and I sometimes I even, consider myself partially, and this is gonna really raise some eyebrows. Bernie Sanders is my guy. And, people hear democratic socialism and they think, oh my God, socialist, Marxist. Democratic socialism is not Marxist socialism. Finland, Denmark, all those countries are democratic socialist nations. There's no difference between them and us except for the fact that the rich pay their fair share. Education is free. Health care is free. If
For the
we had
person.
systems like that in the United States, we could afford to pay decent minimum wage.
Well, I'm gonna give you the sales for 35 years of being in sales. I'm all for Bernie. I'm like, Bernie, can't you find another word to call yourself besides
Other
Democratic
than that,
Socialist? I mean, you can't work with a marketing guy or a salesperson. I'm not telling you to change anything, but
but
words
he
matter in
believes
sales.
it is great. But when
Yeah.
you come out and say, I'm a democratic socialist, people go, oh my God.
I mean, can't you? I don't know what the word is, but
Yeah.
my goodness, I can't. It's hard for me as a salesperson to sell
It's
socialist in
hard to
rural America
sell that. Yes.
Right.
anytime.
Yeah.
But go ahead,
But
Joe. I didn't mean to cut
oh
you
no,
off.
no, this is great. I'm fascinated by that guy. He's such an ineffective senator, but such a very popular human being. And except I think he's got his bubble. He's got his Vermont bubble where you can get away with saying that, but it's like,
You know something interesting? Vermont is the only state in the United States that does not have to present a balanced yearly fiscal budget. They can put the state in debt, just like the federal US government can put America in debt.
Wow.
Only state in the country like that.
Wow.
weird. But the thing about Bernie is, I mean, he's consistent in his beliefs, but he really does seem to care about people, and I think that's
Now that
a more effective part of his, like, if he stayed away from the socialist word and
Right,
just
right. And just was
emphasized
like,
that he cared about people.
I'm a working class guy. Yeah.
I think, and that it would be about, this is something I'm intrigued about, is that our generation has become like politically about these check boxes, like, are you this, are you that, are you this, are you that? And I have a big memory of a time in the past where, like, in the last, I think, 30 years, the amount of House and Senate districts in Oregon who changed from red to blue is very few. We have very few purple ones, and a lot of them are just so consistently Republican. We have difficulty getting anybody to even run on them, right? And the same, in terms of Republicans on the west side of the mountains. But I feel like that's one thing that's attributed to, in my theory of the case, is that we're electing people based on what they promise to do instead of on their ability to make decisions. And I would just be so intrigued to have somebody just be like, that's a hard problem. Let's work on it, instead of, I promise you this thing. And it seems that we used to be that way.
at least more so. Yeah.
More so,
Yeah.
more so. There's always a promise from a politician, but there was at least an implied thing there.
Well, quick question, since we're kind of talking about issues and stuff, what are you seeing as the major issues in rural Oregon, rural West Coast? And then we'll kind of talk about what we're having here. We've already touched based on data centers, but what other issues are y'all seeing on the West Coast on rural?
Well, affordability, gas.
Okay.
We're having our highway department, transportation department has a huge fiscal shortfall. Our democratically controlled legislature and Democratic governor failed to pass a complete bill for it, even though they have a supermajority. They eventually passed this bare minimum bill, but it was built on gas taxes and car registrations. The Republicans have been able to get it referred to the ballot, so that may not actually, that tax base may not happen. It's just chaos. So that's affordability, I think, as much as anything. Cost of gas, cost of registering your car. But in the east, or in the rural parts of Oregon, it's water and fire.
Okay.
I was evacuated twice last summer.
Wow.
It might happen again this summer. And our snowpack is 15% of usual. Did I already say that?
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so it's a mess, and it's really, really sad. I mean, fires take people's houses. They kill people. They create all of this. We're all breathing the smoke. I mean, it'll be hazy. Like, the sun will be this, like, little tiny red dot for days, and to say nothing and then, like, generations old farms are not going to be able to grow anything this year.
It's terrible.
And Heather, jump in here. Heather, what do you think? All them are the same issues we have in rural Southwest Virginia. I would probably add healthcare with ballot, quality
God,
healthcare.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
quality healthcare and keeping our
Yeah.
rural hospitals open. Of
Yeah.
course, the big beautiful bill, we're looking at them cuts, and of course, Heather can talk a little bit about that too.
Right now, one of the big issues is this redistricting.
Now, now, Joel, do you know about our redistricting that's going on in Virginia?
No, do tell, please.
Oh, go ahead, Heather. Give them a little background, and viewers too that might not be from Virginia.
Well, it's to obviously deal with what's happened in Texas
Hmm.
and a couple other red states where they are passing gerrymandered maps, and our U.S. Supreme Court approved a twice illegally gerrymandered map for the state of Texas. So now we have a provision to be voted on April 21st that will allow us to legally redistrict like California.
Mm.
And so there is a huge push from Trump and MAGA red Republicans to fight this tooth and nail. So it's going to be an interesting next month or so. And normally I would not support redistricting for the simple fact that they've already they've already divided up areas here that should have been together, used to be together, that we consider a community, and cut them right down the middle to make their districts. So, but when you're dealing with MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump, if we don't fight fire with fire, we are going to lose.
It's so sad.
So it's
Yeah.
one of the
So,
things at heart, I'm against it principle, but you kind of hold your nose and go, do you support the bigger war? Basically, if it goes through, we would gain 4 Democrat congressmen. 4.
yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Oh,
that's some good
absolutely.
gerrymandering
It
there.
neutralizes Texas. So, if you're looking at the big picture, it's a counteraction. Okay, you started it, and we're counteracting, but
But
here
we're doing it
locally, it hurts
legally.
us in rural Virginia because it makes us even redder. They're
I was going
taking
to
our
say
blue.
that's the thing is like we're already very gerrymandered to the point where I'm in this R15 district, right? And that was from the 2020 thing, and it's like it hurts to be here, right? And if I can imagine that it would just get hotter, it would just get redder, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like John said, it's not something that normally that we would support, but these are not normal times.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a group in the White House right now that believes in competitive authoritarianism. That's what Project 2025 is. And that's what they're trying to consolidate in
So
this
how's that?
election.
Yeah. So how's that affecting how you communicate in your county with? I mean, like the part of that I think about so much is they got these big urban wars going on, and then down in our communities, you got your neighbors. Like how it's a dirty deal, but it's like the best dirty deal, right? Like, and it
Yeah,
can
and
save
see,
America. Like, but does it create further conflict already in the rural area that you're in? That's a leading question. I'm just curious. How's
put it
that
this way:
going?
the last governor's election, we made great strides to improve Democratic vote. In fact, we had in our home county, and the one that Heather is chair of, and part of this is due to her work in the committee and being chair. We had the most Democratic votes for a governor since 2009. Okay, that's a big improvement.
That's
Granted,
huge,
it
and
was
that's the
still
job.
80-20 or 78. I can't remember the exact, but it was still a huge improvement. And the only thing this redistricting comes in, it's like, oh, we gained some of these mega lights, we gained some independents, and then we kind of pull this, and some of those might go, gosh,
That's a dirty deal.
the timing of it in rural, to me, is just terrible. We're
Yeah.
making some strides. Now it's all the power grab from Northern Virginia, the power grab from urban Democrats, and you've seen the signs here. And it's
Yep.
like, and here's the thing, it's hard to argue. You want to talk about it's a hard sale. I'm in sales. It's a hard sale. You know, yeah.
Well, to
Besides going
me,
to the
no,
bigger
it's
picture,
It
not.
puts you guys once again like the rural Democrat, and I don't mean to like be all wow victimy about it, but once again the rural Democrats got to take the heat
yeah,
for what
we're
the
sacrificing.
Democratic Party needs,
Yeah, we're
right? In order to
sacrificing
win this
again.
time,
Yeah,
right?
But living in these deep red districts, the 30% loyalist to the MAGA, his base, they are going to do whatever he says. If he says vote no on democracy, they do it.
So it seems, yeah.
So I don't know any other way that we fix this mess. If the Democrats always insist on taking the high road and doing what is right, we're not going to win against people that believe the rules don't apply to them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna hold my nose, but let me tell you, you can't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah.
That's it, John. That's it.
I know this time's getting long, and I told y'all I wouldn't keep you so long. Hey, I want to end it with this, Joel, because I want to ask you this. One of the big things I write about for urban people to understand rural voters is newspaper deserts. And it's not just newspapers, it's news deserts. And
Yeah.
Heather will talk to, I mean, 90, all of our news sources, whether it be TV, radio, online, is mega related or a surrogate of Fox News.
Mm.
And I tell people, you want to know why rural voters vote the way they do? I'll come down here, watch any TV, read anything, listen to anything, you'll understand. And is it the same way in rural Oregon? Just
We are so lucky. And it's real hard. I got friends in newspapers here. We got a paper in Bend, a town 100,000. We got a weekly
wow.
paper in Redmond, town of 60,000, 30,000. I don't know. It was 6,000 when I was a kid. And then even Madras, town of 7,000, has a paper. One reporter. That woman writes, like, her pens run dry, man. That woman
Wow.
writes all day long. Busy person, but we have newspapers, and it's a big deal that we do. Now, those are run by private equity firms, and they could, anytime. I don't know. I'm very intrigued by some fix of that business model.
Well, that's how our two big TV stations are,
Yeah.
WCYB and WJHL. Now, I can't tell you which one owns which because I get them confused.
Next
But
to
one's owned
Star
by
and Sinclair.
NextStar and the other's owned by Sinclair.
Well, and we're having that merger is happening. The two major statewide television stations are merging, and it's a dirty deal because they're gonna keep looking like two different newsrooms, two different brandings, but they're all coming from the same source. And
I'll tell this quick story. This was
Yeah.
the day after Trump had pardoned the January 6th protesters. And I'm listening to our local radio station, which on the hour it's called SRN News, but it's just a Fox surrogate. And the headlines, Trump pardons these poor citizens that got caught up in this January 6th chaos. And what a great, I mean, that was the headline. And same way with local news on the TV. That's
God.
exactly how they worded it.
Yeah.
And since he did that, 33 of those people
I
have
know.
been rearrested for criminal offenses, including rape and molestation of
Yeah.
children.
Yeah, it's terrible. So there's something that's been happening here in Oregon. There's a couple free weeklies that managed to keep somewhat financially okay. One of them's out of Portland, one of them's out of Bend, and they've established a nonprofit journalism project, and they pretty much just pay one or two reporters to go do cool stories. And then those stories, they publish them, but those stories can be published by anyone. They are open sourced
So
reporting.
you can pick them
That's
up.
right.
And they're doing like investigative reporting on a lot of different stuff. So there is stuff happening that is good. There's a sheriff, this wonderful person in the state did this long-term investigative thing on this shady sheriff in Northern Oregon, rural area there. And so we're finding little edge solutions, but it's very grassroots. It's very grassroots.
Well, we're going to get you back on the show if you'll come back on. And I love to talk about that and some other issues. I'm going to end with this, talking about where we have no local coverage. Is our local board of supervisors, we're having a meeting on historical increases in property taxes. The meeting they had to move it to the local auditorium at the high school. 300 people in attendance. 45 people spoke, of course, against tax, raising taxes. The meeting lasted almost 4 hours. There was not one single live reporter at that meeting.
That's terrible.
Now, there
Yeah.
was some coverage a week later, from they'd look at the YouTube meeting and kind of look at but there was no interviewing people. There was nobody asking hard questions to politicians. Of course, the public was asking hard questions on that meeting. But that just shows you the news desert we're in, news reporting desert.
And you see that like in Southern Oregon, they lost their paper, and it just did not take long for the local city councils, county commissions, et cetera, to start violating their own damn bylaws in terms of the reporting. It's like, if you don't have those eyes on things, there's no incentive to do things the right way. You can't expect people to be paladins. You got to have an eye on them.
I was elected on the board of supervisors 20 years ago, and back then when I was young and stupid, I hated the press. All them people, they just asking tough questions, trying to cause a stir. As I'm older, they are the key to democracy.
They are.
Is
They are,
the
which is
sunshine.
why Trump is trying to get rid of them as fast as he can.
Well,
Yeah.
everybody, I know we've run long. I've
Okay.
enjoyed it. I want to thank both of you coming up. And Joy, I hope you'll come back. I know we
Be my
probably
pleasure.
haven't even
Absolutely.
touched the subject you wanted. I'm sorry.
You guys are my people. And after a weekend talking to a bunch of urban Democrats, it is a fresh air to be here with you
Hey, you
guys.
tell them
So,
nobody
yeah.
sounded like Heather and I.
No.
We could go across the country, John, and nobody would sound like us.
I know.
People talking.
Well, everybody, I'll let y'all go. I hope we can get back soon and everything. Appreciate your time. Really, really do.
Thanks, you
Absolutely.
guys.
Godspeed.